Okay, so Albion starts out with the Fomori, the trollish player, getting a single triple move in either of the scenarios before he takes his turn. And it's just a movement phase, and then we start the game. And in the game, I think Albion is automatically going to be in the war against the Fomori. So I'm going to position myself so I can swing across. I can't enter. I can't enter any of the fairy territories with that special move, but it allows me to bring my forces down into position where I can invade. It also gives me a freedom if I want to use boats. Now, boats don't carry a lot of troops, so they're not terribly useful for this. But if for a major invasion or something, but if I want to do some kind of raid, they could work with that. The other question, or the major decision I feel like I have to make, other than, hey, do I have something I want to do with boats that might help, is whether or what I want to do in Ireland. Now, one thing I can do is I can try to avoid. Let's see the activation table. So Ulster and Leinster, they both have a fair chance of coming in, above average. But on the other hand, there are some yummy things up here that are really nice, some of these magic items. One is an earthquake item, which these guys can't actually use. They're both just regular, heroic kings. But if I could get someone who's an actual enchanter, or who at least has high magic strength, that could be very valuable, because that allows me to start collapsing fortresses, which in a way is sort of the goal of the game, point-wise. Also here, there's a helmet and a weapon, both of which give the owner some significant advantages. There's a mail coat here, which works kind of like the Elvish mail in Lord of the Rings, in War of the Rings, reducing the damage that you take, and it also protects you. There's an evil weapon that this guy Malkin has. That's sort of an auto-death weapon. It's a nasty magic glove, which this would prevent a loss from that. So that's kind of intriguing too. In particular, though, I am interested in this, and that's Forador. The item I most would want, the Earthshaker, the Danish Torque, is very hard to get. I have to get a bunch of search points. Well, what are search points? I haven't looked that up. I sort of jumped into this. The magic strength of all the people added to the number of escort combat strength points. So I'm not really good at looking for stuff, which means I might want to use teleportation to get into here. My folks are all allied, so I can send humans like Sean here over there. The problem is, if I start hunting for magic items and stuff, those are mages who would be valuable in combat and in a lot of other facets of the game. What I've learned in prior playings is that it's pretty tough to take out Leinster with just Connaught and Munster, but probably possible, and I may need to do that. So anyway, I'm faced with some tough choices at the beginning of the game. Usually I kind of ignore all the magical stuff. Hey, it's a fantasy game. Why would I ignore that stuff? Yeah, I know, but it's hard to get too engaged in that, especially with the trolls, because they have a smaller number of characters overall. But I do have some mages. And it might be interesting to go after that and try to reduce the army losses for both sides. Trying to aim for that kind of the victory as opposed to, hey, we both just lost element to the game. So I'm gonna consider this a little bit longer before I go, but I wanted to talk a little bit about at least what I'm thinking about as I move forward here. Right, I think it's going to be impossible to hunt these down. The reason is this: teleportation is done at a range equal to your magic strength. You can go from place of power to place of power, and you have several movement points. So, you know, like this guy has 14. So he could make many attempts at teleportation, but the problem is this: he has a strength of 3 magic, plus 4 for the mana level, gives him 7 hexes. I think the shortest distance, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 10 hexes. I've got like, I think 9 here. That means I'm going to need a magic ability of 5 to make the crossing at this point in the game. Now here it goes down to 4. A couple of these turns it goes down to 3, and I'd be able to gather enough people that I could actually get this. But at this point in the game, I can't really. I'm looking at all my mages, and they're all fairly weak. Now, I could boat them over, but not very quickly. And meanwhile, I'm going to have mages that are going to be out of position as the alliances for Albion start to come into hand. I've got to crush things early. I've got to try to take Albion out as much as possible. I also forgot to mention there are a couple of victory points that I didn't note there. In particular, let's see, I get 30. The Fomorians get 30 for each country that they wipe all the people out of. And that makes knocking out like Leinster particularly effective. Now, again, I said I'm not sure I can do it. I've got 6 strength points here, 12, 16 strength points. Certainly I could take out Brugh and Boinne. And maybe Terra, you know. So I think I'm probably best off just launching a straight-out military attack. So I get that triple movement bonus at the beginning without any real issue. And let's just get ourselves into place here. 1, 2, 3. We're just moving along the trails there. And here, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is afford costs, trolls, an extra movement point? So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll gather these up. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm going to just get everybody in 1 hex. And that's one of the things in this game. In general, I think you want to have all your units stacked together. That's certainly how I felt when I played. You may not need it all the time. So for example, up here, as I move down, I'm going to position multiple stacks. Or I'm going to break into multiple stacks because I'm not facing very much. But here, proportionally, I'm facing some pretty big stacks compared to what I have. I also have to decide what the hell to do with my boats. Now, Oberon's not coming in for a long time. I can't think of a good answer to that question, but I think I want to gather them so that I can fight a major naval battle if need be. The problem with that, of course, is I don't think leaders are necessary with boats the way they are with land units, but I'll be facing a stack that has leaders, and it'll be stronger than me because of that. But unless I can gather my navy, it's not going to be terribly useful for anything. If I can gather it, I can use it to shift somewhat moderately larger size forces around and conduct operations you know, that have some value. The only other option is throw a bunch of people on it and sail over to Ireland and go look for the treasure or something like that. All right, I'm going to continue moving the forces here, and I'm going to try to get my boats into a position where at least they're gathered. I positioned a couple of stacks here, and they could all be in one stack. This would have been better, just because these roadways are easier to move along. Now those are Albion roads. I'm not going to move as quickly as I can move through normal trails, but that's okay. I've gathered the entire Navy here. It's in a fortress, which is helpful because I think that prevents storms from wrecking it. A lot of the starting locations aren't very good. Now with tripled movement, it's pretty easy to get everybody there. These guys we already talked about, I think. Another force here and a force here. And we're just planning on stomping what we can. The main element of my force is going to have the hardest and longest trip down. Things could get kind of rough on these guys, especially if somebody comes into play. So let's take a look at the sequence of play and see where we're going to be starting here. The weather's normal. We get to secretly write enchantments. Albion is not allowed to write any enchantments at this point until somebody crosses their border. They're officially, they are at war, but I don't know. You might be able to delay the game forever, actually, the way the rules seem to be written. I'm not set in any locations to cast enchantments with the Fomori. Again, I just don't see them as all that valuable, except for ones. When I look over the list of them, I can like peek at the contents of a stack. One is I can force the enemy to write down what his orders are, but that's not terribly impressive. Yeah. It lets me get know a turn in advance what he's going to move, which probably means he's not going to move, or he's going to move someplace safe. So it doesn't let you see the future. It lets you. It tells him that you're going to get a chance to see the future before you get to check it. Attrition, I don't have any attrition because I've set it up so I have a king in every location. So that's guaranteed to be okay. There's nobody injured. We go to the activation and I grab a couple of dice. I use small Avalon Hill dice for this. Somehow they seem appropriate. I don't know why. SPI dice are just too small. I use them for some very weird things. And we're looking at the Worm of Mouse's Straw. Now, here's the thing. There are... I need a 6 or less for that. And there's modifiers here. If Fomorians have entered Gwynedd, that reduces his. And the other reduction is the enchantment of Far Calling, which is pretty much what you need to cast that enchantment to get Auberon's stack to come in. I don't think there are any other magical modifiers for diplomacy, unlike in Dark Emperor. And we don't get a worm. And now we'll go to the movement phase, and I'm going to be launching an attack here. I'm not going to be able to overrun because there's a fortress, so I'll just move in and we'll take care of that. Likewise, I'm going to be making attacks here, here, and then I've got to figure out what the hell these guys are doing. But they've got a big 6 movement points to move through here, and they only have 12 movement points total, so they're not going to get very far. I'm probably going to send one force down each of the coastal roads, pretending that I'm playing careers or something along those lines. Let's take a look at the Battle of Leinster. You know, I may want to move these ships, since I have them all gathered. 1, 2, 3. I can't go that fast. I got things that only go 30. I was kind of hoping to pick those guys up and take a force somewhere, but I don't know that I need that. And now I'm probably going to risk my entire navy to bad weather or something. Okay, so over here at Brugh, we've got two forces in play. And the first question is, well, does somebody want to issue challenge combat? And the answer is yeah. He can challenge magically, but they don't take a penalty for not accepting it because they have no magical capability. So somebody here, we'll say Conan, is going to challenge Magog to single combat. Now this is a big deal because Conan has 12 strength points and Magog only has 3. So that's not terribly to his advantage. But if he refuses the combat, he's going to be giving I believe a +5 or something stupid like that. Yeah, he's going to be giving a +5, so he kind of has to fight. So he'll go forward, and he has no magic items. Conan cannot either because he has a strength point there. Okay, so we're looking at 12 to 3, which is going to be 4 to 1. Conan's the attacker throughout all of the rounds of this, and this goes to the death. 4 to 1, 7. A, B, 0. Okay, A does 0 to him. B, what's that? O. The force has the option to retreat. Yeah, that's not going to happen in single combat. Okay, so Magog just took a hit. And somewhere I would be tracking this on a piece of paper if I wanted to. But Magog will be under Leinster, and I would mark off... I'm sorry. Huh. Angus... Huh. Well, I don't know. I think he has a different name. Maybe they have these wrong, because Ogmi's got an axe. I think he's over here, isn't he? I don't know. I don't know what's up. I think Ogmi's got an axe. I don't know. All right, well, whatever. He's obviously not Ogmi. I think he's Angus. Angus Magog. Ogmi may be over here. Yeah. Okay. He's in that stack. So this is Angus, even though it doesn't say Angus on there. And he's taken a hit, and he's now down to 2 strength. So now it's 12 to 2, which puts us on 6 to 1. We get a 4, CBO. Okay, so the attacker took a C, which means he's going to take 2 hits. He takes the right-hand side there. And what was that? BO. Well, he only has a strength of 3. What was the first one? Was he? I don't know. I think he took a D. Okay. So that BO... what the hell? C. C against 12 means he's going to take 2 hits. So at this point, we're looking at... Let me use some kind of markers for this, because we got hits against him. 2 hits on Cormac and 1 hit on Ogmi, or on Magog. So the next round of it, Cormac's going to be down to a 4, doubled his 8, versus 2. He's only at 4 to 1. He gets a big roll though. A is not going to hurt him, and he does an E. An E is going to finish off McOgg. So McOgg is now dead, and we record some victory points for that. He had a strength point with him though, so we have to get that strength point accounted for, and we put that over in Leinster, because his guard doesn't just defect just because he was there. I'll be back in a moment to resolve the actual combat, but I want to put him in his bag and record victory points. Finish all of one combat before you move on to the next one. So now for the battle itself, we're here at Brugh, Boinne, and that's automatically going to be a no. A no says the elves are tripled and the trolls are halved, and it has an extra strength point that's not tripled. So what we're looking at here is 16 strength points. 3 times 5 is 15. And for the trolls, 6, 12, 16, 8 strength points, plus Baelor's 6, which puts us to 14, and Conan is still injured. He needs to recover for that to help. So that's 4 more, and I don't remember my totals anymore. So this was 16, 6, 12, okay, so 8, 14, and 4 is 18. 18 to 16 is going to be 1-to-1. I have leadership, however. I can use Baelor's leadership to add 5 to my die roll. It would be counteracted if McOgg was still there. He had like a 4 leadership. He would counteract most of that. But, you know, you've got to make your choice. Do you want to take the challenge combat, or take, you know, do you want the 5-point penalty from the challenge combat or from no leader? And I get a 3 plus 5 is 8, which means we both take E's. Now, we use the raw strength. So an E, I think I'm at 6. I'm going to be taking 2 hits. So there'll be 3 strength points here. And I want to keep these because they have an effect on... I can bring them back into play if I need to agglomerate counters. So now here I have 12, 16, and I think these count in as well. I'm not sure about that. I know it's raw strength. All army escorts CSPs. You know, I forgot a couple of strength points that were here from the escorts. So that would have actually been 20 to 16, but it's still 1-to-1. But it does count for this. Casualties puts me on the 20 table, and we took an E. That's going to cause 8 points of casualties to these guys, and I don't know what to take. I'll take all 6 here. And 2 here. Okay, and we gotta think here. I just took 10. I get 2 back. I want to get purples. Okay. And we gotta think about other things too, because these are strength points, which are worth 1 each. Now here I lost, what, 2? So the trolls are up to 7, and here I lost some other number that I can't remember anymore. 10, I lost 8, which they get. Remember, that can't go over 400, and we're already seeing it's just, you know, boom, zooming up there. But I also have to take 3 hits on my leaders. Now, it's easier to recover once you take... it's easier to recover from multiple leaders. So I'm going to take 1 hit on Conan here. But he's awfully weak if these guys, who are now in the game, attack, which is scary. And then I'm going to take 2 more hits on Baylor. And while I record that, I'm going to go away because I've got to check something too. What I wanted to make sure of was there were no special modifiers for attacks against a fortress in terms of being able to being forced to siege it. So I did not win in 1 round of combat. Would I be stopped there? No, there's no such thing in this game. You keep blasting against it. If you want, I could stop attacking, and I think the defender could attack me inside the fortress with that tripled versus halved situation. Well, I don't know if I counted that halved properly. Who cares? 8 and 7 is 15, but it's not 8. It's 4 and 7 is 11. So I've got 11 strength points here to 6, 7. So it's 1-to-1 again, but I got +5 for Baylor's leadership. That doesn't go down. I get a 4. +5 is 9. That's a DE. The attacker takes D. I only have 8. I'm sorry, 9, 10. Hold on. 8, 9, 10, 5. 9, 10, 11, 12. To 9, 10. Yeah, it's still 1-to-1. I think I was doubling these instead of... I don't. It's... This game is so annoying when it comes to trying to figure out the combat. Okay, so D, and now I have to add again 6, 8, 9, 10. On D, says I'm going to take 2 and 2. And I'll have to mark 2 losses against these guys. And then E against only 3 or 4 strength points, depending on how you want to do it. That's going to be 2 hits against them, which is pretty big. That'll be these. And I'll record those losses. And I'll finish up the rest of the combats and come back and let you know what the hell happened overall. Because trying to do these on camera is just not worthwhile. Well, I lied, of course. The R meant I had to retreat, so I took the loss on the fortress, and that's now in ruins after the losses. We've got 10 fairy points, 19 trollish points. The trolls getting 10 big points for knocking out the fort. It's going to be more expensive to knock out things. But now you can see, Ulster, wow, I can't take that on. You know, I mean, I used up my 2 kingdoms. I may have trouble with Leinster at this point. I've got 2 more battles to take care of. That's what it looks like to me. And I'll come back after this. Okay, and here we come to my battery not charging. There we go. Here we come to the battle down here at Caer Arklow. And there it goes again. Alright, fuck it. Out goes the plug. I'm not going to be on that thing if it's not working. This is an interesting situation. I'm not going to play it all out, but the challenge. Now, obviously, Dando is going to challenge Edric, or he's going to challenge the elves. If Edric refuses, that's 5-point penalty in terms of command rating here. And then, whether he accepts or refuses, he then has the opportunity to launch a challenge against Sean for the magical combat. He's at a minus there as well, although he has more combat strength, so he has more hit points, which might mean he can win the battle. The chance of killing Sean is what I'm going to go for, so I'm going to refuse the battle against Dando. That's going to give me a +5 bonus for all the rounds of combat here. And unless I get an O or an R, I can't get out of there. I got to stand there and take the attacks. And now if I challenge Sean, Sean has the option to refuse, but I think he's going to fight here because he outstrengths Edric. Not by much, but he is basically it's a 1-point difference, but it's a 1-point difference with this 4 extra mana added on. And this is where I said it could be interesting. Let's say Edric was 2 strength and Sean was attacking. Sean, you would see 4 to 2 and think, oh, that's going to be good. No, it's 8 to 6. It's still going to be 1 to 1. In this case, it's going to be 1 to 2, but Edric has a little bit more hit points. So we'll roll that out real quick. And I brought calculators because I'm going to need them for this game. So 1 to 2, no modifiers. I get a 5. R, C to a B. So I have 7. We're both on this table. C, I'm going to be taking 1 hit. And this doesn't affect magical strength. And he took a B. Also in that range, he takes no hits. And now we do the next round, etc. Well, it doesn't really matter if he dies, except the leadership will be taken off too, which is problematic. So it's again 1 to 2, right? So now I'm at like, yeah, it's the same. The strength doesn't change. I get an 8, a D to C, D, and I guess my strength is the same. So I'm taking 2 more hits. That puts me to 3. And he takes a C also on that level. He takes 1 hit, and that's his first. And we have no option to get out of here, no magic items. Sean have something? Sean has something. Sean has a ring. What's that do? Maybe I didn't want to attack him. Any person possessing it can cast the enchantment of vision automatically at triple the range. That's, I think, the one that allows you to... I think that just allows you to see lots of hexes. I don't know. It's not very interesting. I wouldn't have him in the combat in that case. He's got to be in specific places, which include Dunby Plith. Or no, that's the Giant's Dance. Is that one of the ones? No, Denby's Plith. I don't know where it is. That's up here. That's his close one that he could do this with. And allows him to look at all units within twice his magic strength. Which isn't terribly valuable. So what are we at now? He's, well, it's another 1 to 2 attack. He has no option on this. And a 9. They both take Ds. They're both still at the same. So he's going to be dead, and he's going to be dead. Important possible factor is what happens to the ring, and you got to look up the roll on that. On a 2 through 9, it's just destroyed. Otherwise, it would be captured by the winner. But if both people are dead, then it would be recovered by the side that had it. So he's going to be gone too. And now we resolve the combat itself with the elves at 16 strength points, and these at 12, 14. They're human, so they're halved as well. So 14 is 7, and 11 is 18. And it would have been nice to do damage to these guys. I'm also going to be suffering +4 and +5, so +9 to the die roll. +4 for leadership and +5 for refusing the challenge. And yet another kind of interesting question where you could figure out to whose advantage it is, but it's not trivial to do so. So Colorin here and Branagh are both heroes. So they're both going to be good at challenge melee combat. Shit. You know, it's like I can't play because, at least not when I'm videoing intensively. So what's going to happen here is really a good question. I could also make a challenge of Dobie the Scryer against Colorin to weaken him and make that challenge first, and then Colorin has the option to make his challenge, but he may not wish to. Now, the actual ordering is not absolutely set as far as I know. If we look at this, and therefore I'm kind of faking it. So the active player can initiate the battle, and then he can initiate the challenge combat. And they're resolved as in the sequence of play. Let's see if that actually specifies the order completely, because maybe the magic has to happen second. Yeah, so what would happen here is the attacker declares his challenges first, then the defender can accept them, and he can declare his own challenges. And then they're executed. Now, without any regard to what the ordering is. So, my feeling with that is I'd execute them in the order that they're granted. So, the decision by the attacker, do I want to attack magically first to try to weaken him? And maybe I'll lose Dobie that way, because he has a very low, we can't zoom anymore either, a very low physical body compared to Colorin. Or would we rather just go for this, try to weaken him? We want to knock him out, and then have a follow-up magical challenge. And then the question is, what the hell are Colorin wants to do? I mean, if he ends up dead, that's as bad as refusing the magical challenge, right? So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see that dual offer, because I'd rather not lose Dobie. I like having a mage. He has this little scrying glass, which allows him to do scrying magic, which isn't terribly interesting either. That's the one where you force the other guy to write down what his orders are. It's just not that interesting to me, and you have to have that item, and maybe you have to be in your home to cast it. So yeah, I think I'm going to do the challenge, and I think Colorin's going to refuse the magical challenge. That gives him a -3 penalty, though, even if he's dead, which sucks. Or he could just try to hope that he can win, luck out on this whole thing. I don't know. But I think what I'm going to do is what I just described. I think I got a better option. I'll use Magog, who's not quite as good a mage, but it doesn't matter. I got 1-to-1. And make that challenge first, the magical challenge, followed by a physical challenge by Og, because Magog might well kill Colorin. Magog's got more hit points, so he's got a pretty good chance of winning the fight. And Colorin's going to refuse Magog's fight, but then he has to fight Bran Og. Not to be confused with Bran Mikog or whatever, who died earlier. It was listed just as Bran. I don't know, but yeah, we're gonna do that one then. Challenge combat is a really, really obnoxious design element because of the combat results odds table. It worked a lot better to do the personal combat in War of the Ring and most of the other SPI games. This one just totally screws the pooch on the decision. What we've got now is an even battle where they're both down to 2 hits, and it'll be over eventually. But what I'm doing is I was rolling on the 1-to-2 table, which really sucks because basically anything from a 4 out to an 8, well, 7, didn't do any damage to anyone. The 1-to-1 has some pretty severe damages on it, but 1-to-2 didn't work so well. So it was really not terribly likely that I was going to get hurt or hurt anyone or anything. And, well, I got a nice die roll finally. But I was rolling die rolls of like 4 or 5 or something like that, right? 4 is no good because that gets me a C. A C at 1-to-6 strength, which is what a human has, does nothing. So I have to get under a 4 to hurt myself, which seems stupid. I'm on the 1-to-2 table, right? Why is it so hard not to... it's actually easier to hurt myself on higher rolls, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But I got a high enough roll that I hurt him and not me, so now I'm back on the 1-to-1, and that has a good chance of killing everyone. And the first loss was all to, ended up being 2 points to Albion, and they got to retreat, lost the territory. Now the points are 55 to 15. I want to make sure that there's nothing exciting happening at the end of this turn. It looks like combat's the last thing, so it's going to be the ferry turn, and I really need to get away from this for a bit. This is... I forgot how cranky the combat system made me. It's pretty damn bad. So now we have another little tedious process to go through here. Basically, we're following the ferry player turn, which is going to be the same as the Fomorian. There's no recovery available. None of my ships were involved in combat, and my characters, well, characters don't generally survive contact with the enemy very long. Once you get a stack with a lot of characters in it, like a couple of these trollish stacks here, there might be some leaders left after a combat that didn't end up dying or fighting in a challenge combat, at least. But with this spread out start, there's not a lot there. So remember, attrition happens at the beginning of the turn before both players go. So these loose units here are immune from attrition right now. They get a chance to go run and hide somewhere. So the big thing that we're doing right now is going to be the activation phase. And we have to roll our way down the entire line here. No one entered Boinne, so I roll. He is not coming in yet. Misha gets a bonus if Dunatis has been in. Gerflax, same thing. Okay, I get Gerflax. That's going to change things a little bit. He has a magic item I'm going to have to look up. But let's look at some of the nations. Oberon's expedition I can't start rolling for until turn 4. Okay, the Kingdom of Boinne. This is very likely to come in. And you know, it's a shame because unlike Dark Emperor, where you send envoys and stuff, for the most part you don't have to do anything. You just roll lots of dice here. Okay, Gwyned's coming into the war, and that'll help to give me some support. Kerwillen is down here. That would be a big one. They're strong. Nope. Ulster. And Ulster is coming in, and that probably spells doom for the Trolls of Ireland, because they were weakened on that first attack, and now both the Elvish kingdoms are in play here. It's going to move me to the movement phase. Movement is very similar, but the movement point costs are all going to be different because of the different rays. Largely, that doesn't matter too much. Usually you're moving on the roads, but when you move off-road a little bit, you do have to be kind of careful what you're doing. I have to think a little bit about whether there's any magic items I want to go hunting or anything like that. But chances are I'm too hard pressed here, and here I think I want to wipe out the trolls before I start hunting for the treasures of the past. Had a major screw up. I forgot about the reaction phase, and Dagda's stack would have been able to react into here, making that battle absolutely impossible for the trolls to win. We'll leave that alone for now. I'm a little worried about attacking here because the trolls are doubled. They have rough terrain here now that the fortress is destroyed. So that's going to be... I'm not sure it's going to be trivial. Combat strength doesn't matter too much. What really matters is the die roll modifiers. You can get a pretty low, like 1 to 3 odds here, and you can see if I can get the modifiers onto the high end of the table, And I think, well, I'm not going to have magical challenge, but I am going to have... I'm going to take a look at the modifiers because something leads me... Yeah, if I can challenge them and knock out one leader that way, they'll still have a big leadership bonus, so it's not going to be a pretty fight to begin with. And bringing a lot of troops doesn't necessarily work because of the way the casualty table is stacked. I might be able to cause as much casualties or more by bringing smaller amounts of forces. So I have to be very careful with what I decide to put in there. I've made my mind up on one thing. I conglomerated my forces of Boinne and Albion. Some of them could not get down here, but the rest were here. I would have loved to attack this space because that is... Oh no, that's nothing. That's just a clear space. I thought that was forest. The forest is this weird sort of paler than the woods, and the forest is more powerful for the... Yeah, see, they put it here, forest. Printer's errors. Transpose the sample. Oh no. Ah, so that's a printing error. So this is the forest. These are the woods. And I thought I was getting the advantage of the stronger terrain. So the forests are triple terrain value for the elves, which could be of great value. But I'm a little worried about this stack because these guys, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, they're not going to be able to make it. But I would like to slow them down. So I started considering the idea of, say, casting snow or rain everywhere. Rain's not going to do a hell of a lot because there's no rivers. The roads pass by the rivers up here. So I'm not going to have to deal with rivers, which is the big effect of rain, is to increase the penalty on that. But snow would be cool because it throws a forced attrition onto these guys who are out in the open. And that looked really appealing. But for one thing, the only person I have who can kind of cast that is Gerflax. He has to do it from a mountain. This would be a mountain, Derwent's Watch. But that's a wild magic zone, so he'd be rolling on the attrition table at, I believe, +5. Ooh, he's able to subtract his magic. Isn't he? Oh no, it would only be a plus... I was wrong. It's only a +4. It's at the current mana level. And he can get rid of the base mana level. So he could get rid of... He could have a -2 to the die roll there. He has no command ability. Which would mean he'd probably roll a C or less, which wouldn't hurt him. I think it's worth it. So we're going to try to teleport there. It's actually in range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it's not. This is in range, though. So I'm going to spend 1 movement point to try to teleport, and let's take a look. I think I have to roll 2 dice under my magic strength. Yeah. So my magic strength right now is 10. That's equal to or under there, probably. Okay. So that's 1 movement point to move here, and then I'll do another one to try to get to Derwent's Watch, and I make it there. And I'm planning on casting Fimbulwinter next turn from there. Now, there are other things I could be casting. I could be casting Far Calling. I can do that at any point in the game. It just doesn't affect anything until Auberon is able to actually come back. And I still haven't figured out if I'm attacking here. Now, stacks are hidden. But since I play Wandering Away and everything, trying to remember what's in a particular stack is impossible for me. So for any game with hidden stacks, I always fudge quite a bit when I'm soloing. I don't feel... You know, the OCS has this situation too, where it's like, well, look, if you're really familiar with the game, that's great. And if you're playing in kind of a solid situation where you're just sitting there and you're aware of what's going on, I got no problem with it then. But there are times when I have no idea, what the strength of a stack is, especially if I haven't played a game very much. And it's just not a suitable experience, in my view, to be sitting there and saying, well, okay, I'll attack this, and I have absolutely no clue whether or not it's going to work. That, to me, defeats the flavor of games too much. So I like to at least get a fudge idea of how strong it is, so I can look on the charts and try to understand, can I beat that? And, in some cases, that detracts from some of the surprise value, but I think that's more valuable than the ultimate surprise of having no idea what is deployed where in a game that had, say, fixed deployment, or not being able to remember because I walked away for a day, what was in that stack, how relatively strong it is. So I find it necessary. Even if I'm playing opposed, it feels so wrong sometimes to play these hidden information games. Okay, and after gathering the Navy, one more thing I did was I'm launching all the Irish into Brugh and Boinne to attack. And the one thing I wanted to point out there is I got Clerk, and he's declaring a challenge combat. Conan's going to accept it. I can't do a magical challenge because the trolls have no magic here. But Conan's weaker right now. He's only strength 2. I'm going to almost assuredly lose him. And Clerkin has Trollbane. That sounds good. Which increases his maximum combat strength by 1, so he's going to be attacking at a 6. And it does double damage against in trial by combat against trolls. So, this is pretty hopeless for Conan. But the problem is, I'd have to face the combat, at least one round of combat, sitting at a +5 to the attacker's level, to the attacker's die roll, for failing to meet the challenge. So you always kind of want to meet a challenge combat, which means the characters disappear pretty quickly. And leadership-wise, Baelor and Dagda are going to be equal. So that +5 would be a big deal. And losing Conan is not that big a deal. But that means the next battle, the challenge might take Baelor down. And that's, or he has to refuse it. Even with the doubled elves, with double trolls, this ends up being like 3-to-1 because I've got so many magicians in this stack. And they all, Morgau, for example, the weakest of them, 3 points, +4 for the mana level. It just, the points just accumulated so high, and Trollbane added a point to him. I've got no leadership bonuses, though. And no challenge or anything bonuses. So I'm just on the 3-to-1 table. And I roll an 8, which is going to be a B for the attacker. Now, the attacker has a lot of troops. 6, 10, 11... 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, which means they're going to lose 2 units, 2 strength points, and I don't remember what the other number was. CR. The R is cool because it allows me out of there. I've only got 7 at C, means I'm only losing 1 strength point, but I'm also going to be taking hits on the leaders, which are the equivalent numbers, I think. Wait a minute, what did I get? It was only a C, yeah. So it's going to be 2 hits, 2 personal hits, and 2 army casualties on the elves, and 1 of each on the trolls. Is basically the end of the first turn. I don't know. I'm thinking I'll try to write the names down for the month that we're in. I don't know if that's at all helpful, though. because they're not intuitive and recognizable. So I'll probably just put it as turns when I record it. It's easier for me and for you as well. The elves succeeded in the battle, sort of. I mean, they drove them off, but they took more damage. They lost more victory points. The only difference is Conan dying is a bonus. They were able to spread their losses out here. Now, it may have given a misconception as to how you allocate the losses. I believe for the character losses, you actually rate this against the character strength, but that worked out the same. And I'm going to probably make that mistake quite often. I don't even know if it's clearly stated in the rules as to how the casualties are, So, see, here's the thing. If you're in a bigger force, should you take more character casualties? That never made sense to me. So I think I've kind of decided that it shouldn't be that, and that it should be the character strength in play. The rules as written say the army strength, though, and honestly, it's easier to do it that way because it's less lookups. You have to count up all the character strengths that currently exist, and you have to worry about casualties that are currently in play to allocate those losses. But it doesn't really make sense that folks in a larger army are going to take more damage. It actually is counterintuitive. So that was one change that I made myself. But the game is fiddly and obnoxious enough in so many ways that at this stage in my life, I'm not really interested in trying to achieve that level of reality in something that I don't think does a greatly accurate representation anyhow. All right, let's send this up.